Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the GBSN Cross-Border Coffee Break webinar series. Today, our webinar is on designing a sustainable business program, hosted by the Miami Herbert Business School. So I'm Nicole Zephyrin. I'm the Assistant Director of Communications and Membership. I'll be facilitating the webinar today. Today, we're lucky to have two professors from the Miami Herbert Business School. Dr. David Kelly, he is the Professor of Economics. He's also the co-chair of the Sustainable Business Research Cluster and the Academic Director of the Masters of Science in Sustainable Business. We also have Professor Hicks, who's a lecturer in the Economics Department. So before we start, I just wanted to go over quickly how to submit a question on Zoom. So as participants, you all will be muted and your videos will be turned off. However, we're having a Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. So throughout the presentation, you could submit a question by pressing the Q&A button here. Input your question, you can send it anonymously if you'd like, and click send. All the questions will be put into a queue in which we'll address at the end during the Q&A portion. Just a little bit about GBSN, for those of you who don't know us. We're a global business school network of 106 top business schools in 49 countries. And our mission is to improve access to quality, locally relevant management and entrepreneurship education for the developing world. We do that in 3 different umbrellas by fostering a network of partnerships, we promote best practice, and we facilitate capacity building programs. For more information on what we do and on membership, please visit our website at gbsn.org. All right, I will hand it over to Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Nicole. Welcome, everybody. I'm Dave Kelly. I'm Professor of Economics, and I'm the Academic Director of the MS in Sustainable Business here at Miami Herbert Business School at University of Miami. I'm very excited to share all the things we've been doing with respect to sustainable business at the Herbert Business School, and I hope you enjoy the talk. All right, Nicole, if you could, oh, there we go, okay. Okay, so quickly, just the agenda for what we're going to talk about today. I'm gonna just give you a brief overview of the program. And in this overview, I'm going to talk a little bit about what sustainable business is, just kind of make sure we're all on the same page with this kind of very broad topic. And then I'll talk about what the key differentiators are for the program, go over some of the curriculum innovations that we have, a very innovative new curriculum, talk about the students who have been joining the program, and then talk a little bit more broadly about all the sustainability initiatives that we've been doing as a business school as a whole. You know, I think it's very important that we not only teach sustainable business, but we practice sustainable business as well. Okay, so the MS in Sustainable Business is a specialized master's degree here at the business school. It's kind of part of this increasing trend that I'm sure many of you have seen, where students are kind of moving away from more generalized degrees like the MBA in favor of more specialized degrees, such as the MS in Finance or MS in Data Analytics. Here the MS in Sustainable Business. It's a 10-month program, 1 year, full-time. We don't do any night and weekend type of programs. The idea is, you know, you're going to kind of sacrifice a year, but then you'll be done. Now, sustainable business is a hot new field in business. Even just 8 years ago, only about 20% of S&P 500 firms were reporting on their sustainability initiatives, and now it's up to 85%. So, you know, really a remarkable change in just a very short time, 8 years. You can also see the importance of sustainable business from the size of the socially responsible investment assets under management. In 2016, it reached 8.72 trillion, nearly 22% of all assets under management. So, you know, investors care, companies care, and they're getting more every day. The program's open to students from all academic backgrounds. One of the great things that we'll see in a minute about this program is it it attracts a different set of students than you might typically see to an MBA program. Okay, so first let's talk about what corporate sustainability is, just to kind of get on the same page. Sustainability is defined as meeting the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. Now, this is not a great definition for business. Sustainability is a super broad topic. This definition applies to things like life sciences and economics. When we talk about corporate sustainability, a more precise definition would be creating long-term shareholder value by embracing opportunities and managing risks derived from economic, environmental, and social developments. And what that really means is we're looking for kind of win-win situations, things where a company can do something that's good from a social and or environmental perspective, but also benefits the firm financially. Okay, so just to give you a simple example, LATA Airlines, it's a Brazilian airline company. They reduced their fuel usage by 38 million gallons as part of their sustainability initiatives. How do they do this? Well, it's efficiency improvements through things like better air traffic management, engine maintenance. They wash their engines. Getting that soot off the engines improves fuel economy, which when you fly millions and millions of miles can add up to a lot of gallons saved very quickly. They also buy very fuel efficient planes. They have one of the youngest fleets in the industry at average age of 7 years. You can see in the picture one of their new fuel efficient Airbus 320s. This benefits the firm obviously by reducing their costs. Fuel costs are pretty much everything to an airline, but it also, the reduction in fuel usage means that the environment is going to be better. Here's a slightly more complex example. Royal Caribbean is a company on our board of advisors here at the MS in Sustainable Business. And what they do is they maintain a single environmental compliance standard, which kind of exceeds the minimum in all the different countries and U.S. states that they have ports in. So, if you think about it, it's actually kind of all these different countries and states, they all have different environmental compliance requirements. And it's kind of difficult actually to hit the minimum in all these different areas. So, by having one compliance standard that's kind of above the minimum, they can reduce their training costs, reduce the cost of software and other equipment, all at the same time, but while improving the environment. So those are just two examples from kind of the environmental side. We'll see some more examples as we go along, including examples from the social side. Okay, so what are the key differentiators of our program? The main differentiator of this program is that it's a very rigorous, data-driven program. So rather than focus on, latest media headlines or just kind of feel-good things, what we want to teach students is to make the business case for sustainability. How can a business make the maximum environmental and social impacts while still benefiting the firm financially? Our curriculum is STEM certified. It's the only STEM certified Sustainable Business Master's program in the country. And again, the idea is, you see a lot of buzzwords, a lot of headlines, banning straws. How much does that really benefit the environment compared to something else the company might do, like that's less sexy, like putting more insulation in their windows and walls. What the program teaches you to do is how to evaluate different things that the company might do in terms of sustainability and figure out which ones are the most beneficial. Another differentiator is a very business-focused curriculum. It takes typical business courses and reimagines them to focus on sustainability. We'll see the curriculum in a minute, but just as an example, the accounting course teaches a lot about social and environmental reporting as opposed to just about financial reporting. There's an interdisciplinary component to the program. Students take 3 electives that can provide the scientific basis behind some of the sustainability initiatives that they're doing. And there's a wide variety, as we'll see in a minute, of electives to choose from. And then finally, there's a super innovative capstone course where we place students inside a firm to do a sustainability project. And we'll talk about that also in more detail in just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of the courses in the curriculum, first kind of the required courses, and just to kind of give you a quick flavor of the new innovations in the curriculum. So the first few required courses are about how to make the firm more sustainable. You're persuading your company that they should adopt more sustainable business practices. What are those practices and how do they help the firm? So the first course is a microeconomics course, and what that course is about is how to substitute more sustainable inputs for less sustainable inputs. So you can see here the picture of a Walmart truck. What Walmart has done is they put speed governors in their trucks. Speed governors limit how fast the truck can go. Now, the slower the truck goes, the better the fuel economy, the more fuel you save. Of course, the slower the truck goes, the longer it takes for the truck to arrive at its destination, and so your trucker labor hours, your labor costs are going to go up when you use the speed governor. So it's a trade-off between the sustainable input, which is labor in this case, and the unsustainable input, which is fuel. And so how do we make those trade-offs? How can you evaluate that trade-off in light of what the company is trying to do in terms of sustainability? Second, there's a leadership course, and the leadership course is largely about change management. So you've decided from the top that you want to make your organization more sustainable. How do you go about changing the mindset and the culture in the organization? But also there's things on incentives, how to design bonus structures and so on for employees so that they adopt more sustainable business practices, and maintaining a sustainable workforce. Things like providing health care and kind of the benefits of sustainability in terms of making your workplace a more attractive place to work. So you can see there, JM Family Enterprises is a local company here in Miami that's very much focused on maintaining a sustainable workforce. Third, there's a course on making your supply chain more sustainable. The socially responsible investment community, they're a very smart group, and it's not really enough to say, okay, well, we've made our headquarters very energy efficient, and so we're kind of done, even though our factories in China might be very polluting. They're smart enough to be able to trace a company's activities all the way down through the supply chain. So what companies are doing is not only making their headquarters and their US operations more sustainable, but also working on their supply chains as well. So a lot of this course is on monitoring, how to monitor your suppliers so that they are in fact complying with the company's sustainability policies. Things like joint investment in equipment, which might improve energy efficiency. How to share the cost of such improvements with your suppliers, how to persuade your suppliers to make these kind of new technological changes, and a lot on local versus non-local sourcing of your suppliers. Perry Ellis is a company, you see the logo here, that we sometimes work with. They're very focused on keeping their supply chain sustainable. So they have many factories in Asia. It's important for them that those factories have good working conditions, that they don't use child labor, that they're safe for the workers and so on. This helps them, with their brand risk, helps their brand reputation, and benefits the company in that way. Okay, so once we've kind of made the company more sustainable, what I always tell companies is you might as well report to everyone that you're more sustainable once you've done all this work to actually make it happen. So there's an accounting course that is about incorporating the environmental and social reporting along with the traditional financial reporting. It teaches the Global Reporting Initiative, which is one of the standards out there, but also some of the newer emerging standards that are coming into play. Ernst & Young is one of our biggest supporters. They're on our our board of advisors. They have some 1,200 sustainability consultants around the world whose job it is to help companies report on their sustainability initiatives and their environmental and social reporting. And then there's a very innovative new course, which is called Valuing Public Goods. Non-market valuation is kind of a technique in economics that's used to value public goods. So, if you reduce asthma deaths by 1%, what is the value of that in terms of reduced hospitalizations, less sick leave, higher worker productivity, et cetera. So it's a statistical way to kind of estimate these benefits. If you improve water in the Everglades, Everglades is a local national park here that you can kind of see. There was a study there in the lower right corner. And what is the value of that in terms of better tourism and improved water supply and so on? So this course teaches you how to do that, but the innovative part is it does it from the firm's perspective. So the company can use these techniques to put a value on its sustainability efforts and kind of decide, okay, are we doing a lot of good here, or are we doing just a little good, and maybe we should focus our efforts better someplace else? Okay, the next set of kind of core courses deals with external stakeholders. So the investment community, of course, is one of the biggest. There's a sustainable finance course, which teaches students how to get your company to kind of satisfy some of the metrics that socially responsible investors are looking for, so that they'll invest in your company, so that you can have access to green sources of capital like green bonds or green private equity and so on. You can see here on the chart, it's the PAC's Global Women's Equity Fund. It's a very large mutual fund that invests in companies that have high gender pay equity and have women on their board of advisors and in their C-suite. Microsoft scores very well in these categories, and so it's one of the largest holdings of this fund. So the idea is, by satisfying some of these metrics that these investors are looking for, you can lower the firm's cost of capital. Millicom is a company on our board of advisors. What they do for their sustainability efforts, it's a Latin American telecom. They provide internet access to kind of rural places in Latin America, help local artisans get on the internet and sell their products globally. And that has helped them, as they just floated a sustainability bond that has a lower interest rate than more typical bonds you might see. Next, there's an impact investing course, which looks at sustainable finance from the opposite side. So now investors, you have an investor who, say, is 60 years old and has certain risk and return requirements, but also is interested in promoting companies that have good gender pay policies. And so how can we construct a portfolio for this investor that satisfies not only their financial criteria, but also their social and environmental criteria? And then there's a sustainable marketing class that has a lot on nudging, how to nudge consumers to be more sustainable and how to differentiate your products. Sustainability is a great way to make your product stand out in the marketplace. So, as Patagonia can attest. And then finally, there's some core courses on the interaction between sustainability and regulatory compliance. There's a regulation compliance course that teaches cap and trade systems, carbon taxes, and kind of the benefits to over-complying. So a lot of times with modern regulations, if you over-comply with the regulation, you earn credits, which you can sell to other firms, and that can in part pay for your sustainability initiatives. This is Tesla's business model. They over-comply with the fuel economy standards by producing electric cars, and then they sell the credits they earn to other companies. Second, there's risk management course, and that deals with the interaction between sustainability and risk mitigation, how sustainability programs can reduce your reputational risk, reduce the risk of environmental accidents, and so on. Okay, so those are the core courses, and then students as I mentioned earlier, are able to take 3 electives from across the university. They can take courses in climate change, for example, to get a scientific basis behind some of their sustainability initiatives with respect to the environment. We have a world-class in we have a world-class environmental group here at our Rosenstiel School of Atmospheric Sciences, and they can take courses over there. There's courses on natural resources. Our engineering department has a sustainable construction program. They can take courses over there. They can take courses in environmental law, natural disasters like hurricanes, and if they're interested in sustainable development, they can take courses in global health and development as well. And finally, there's a capstone course, which Professor Hicks will describe in detail in just a minute, or in fact right now. So I'm going to hand it over to Professor Hicks. He's going to talk about the capstone course, and then I'll talk about some of the other things the business school is doing. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dave. Welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to join you today. I'm going to quickly review the course that I designed with our client, Office Depot. First, I'll provide a quick overview of how I approached it, the structure of the course itself, and then some takeaways that I've gleaned from the engagement so far, and the status of the course going forward as we look into next year and the second and third quarter, basically, of the course itself. So the first slide is the overview of the project. So this course was designed to meet the needs of our multidisciplinary action project, where students are able to get hands-on experience in the business community. They have a chance to apply the theories that they are learning in the courses you just heard from Dr. Kelly describe. So they get a chance to go in and actually provide some out-of-the-box thinking to companies that sign up for this type of project. And of course, these can be tailored in any way, depending on the size of the firm, their industry, the sector that they operate in. So, for example, this client, Office Depot, which is based in Boca Raton, which is a major retail chain throughout the United States and actually parts of Canada and even the Caribbean, has $11 billion in sales. Its revenue is derived roughly half from its business-to-business customers, and then its retail stores, of which they have 1,300, with 42,000 employees scattered around the United States. This company appealed to me because they are in a state of external disruption and internal transformation. The industry now has plenty of competitors that compete with them in office supplies and professional services, Best Buy, Amazon, Walmart, to name a few. And at the same time, they've had to find ways to cut costs and streamline their operations so that they're nimble enough to actually consider a shift in their business model, which is what our project plugs into. So we had at least 6 or 7 months of preliminary talks with the company, specifically their sustainability department. They have about maybe 3 people that are charged with administering the sustainability program across the whole company. So needless to say, staffing is very limited. So the opportunity to have 23 bright, ambitious, intelligent, sophisticated students from all over the world come in and help them at no financial charge was very appealing. So we talked about this in much the same way as one would structure a consulting engagement. They were the client. We were coming in with outside expertise, but of course wanted to meet parameters that they set for us in terms of what they were looking to do specifically as it pertained to sustainability and fitting into their overall business in transition that I just mentioned. The other aspect of this is that this fits into a national movement here in the United States to develop workforce initiatives. Sometimes they resemble apprenticeships that you find in Europe, but ways to match skills that business or employers are looking for, and what universities are equipped to train and educate the next generation in order to obtain jobs. And this, of course, is kind of a revolving door in a sense, because depending on what potential employees bring to the table, sometimes, like in this case, the company can see a role develop out of some initial engagement that addresses a need that the company has, but it isn't quite clear about what it might look like 9 months down the road. So that's kind of where we fit in. And so I find this to be an opportunity or a win-win for both sides. I mentioned the business transition just a few minutes ago. Also, this project, as I said, is within the sustainability realm, but specifically it involves the issue of circular economics. The shift towards zero waste. Many companies are now looking at this as a way not only to save cost, but also to produce an economic resilience. So sometimes you hear this discussed in conversations related to corporate sustainability and even in resilience as it pertains to the public sector. The client was very clear that she wanted deliverables, clear deliverables at the end of the 9 months, goals and metrics, so that when the students were finished, this wasn't a glorified internship. That's what we all wanted to avoid. And so the students are not referred to as interns, they're not getting coffee or making copies, they're actually working with executives and mid-level managers on a specific project as it pertains to circularity, as we'll see in a second when I talk about the structure of the program. Lastly, to get the whole thing going, once we agreed on the program, which I'll talk about in a minute, structure, we had a two-part orientation where the company came to campus, came to the business school, met the students, conducted a survey to find out who they were, what their backgrounds were, how to kind of match them up with the project as it was coming together. And then part B of that orientation was at the Boca Raton, at the headquarters of Office Depot, where the students were able to meet their team leaders, some of the senior executives at the company that were extremely interested in what the students were about to do. And we're talking about the general counsel and the corporate secretary and the vice president of sustainability. So this has there has been buy-in at the senior leadership level of the company. So quickly, the structure of the program, essentially, as I just mentioned, we wanted something that would have the support of the C-suite. So if students produce bold new thinking, then there would be support for that at the highest levels of the company in order to see some real change happen. For the client wanted the project to revolve around waste management solutions and best-in-class action items, so that there was, as I mentioned before, a clear shift towards a zero waste business model in order to make the client stand out as a leader in the emerging circular economy that that both sides agreed was something that needed to happen in terms of the larger discussion around climate change. It's not enough to talk about carbon emissions reduction if you're not talking about how we're producing massive amounts of waste and the production process that produces it. The teams were then built around 4 areas of 5 to 6 students each, with a member of the client organization leading them. As I said, this was a waste project around waste management, so it was divided into hazardous waste, non-hazardous waste, universal waste, which zeroed down into one of the main areas, main product lines that the company has, which is ink and toner, and then customer solutions, which of course would tie all of these, the work of the different teams together as it pertained to a customer-facing solution. And so all 4 teams are now up and running and have been conducting weekly meetings, either in Boca Raton or over via conference call or through field work. But there is a requirement that they meet with the client at least month to month, each month, face to face. If they aren't required to be there physically, because Boca Raton is quite some distance away from Coral Gables, and so we curtailed the number of face-to-face required meetings to once a month, but that there was weekly interaction going on, and every week the students provide me with a progress report of how they're doing, and I have a nice overview of all 4 teams, the interaction going on, either physically when I go into Boca as well, or via the conference calls, and the progress reports that I'm given, so I have a direct line to each student, as well as see what the team itself is doing. And so I have an integrated perspective of the project as it's moving forward. Right now, we're just concluding the research and discovery phase of the project. When the students return from break in January, they'll be looking at implementing some of those ideas that they've come up with as a result of the meetings and the introductions and the information and data that the company has provided them. And as they look forward down the road to the deliverables, that should be number 3, but deliverables, which is the final phase of the project, where they actually will, as part of their final presentations to the faculty here and the client executives, what they actually are leaving the company with as they move on at the end of their semester in May. So their course credit or their grades are based on continuous evaluation of their progress and their participation. And then they are building up to final presentations, as I mentioned, which are both oral and written, and will be delivered to the executive leadership of the client, including the CEO, who has actually elevated this project within the company. It started as a mid-level manager type project, but quickly as word spread about the extent to which and the scope at which we were working, he raised it to the executive vice presidential level and even members of his C-suite, as I mentioned before. And lastly, in terms of where things stand right now, as I mentioned, we're wrapping up the research and discovery phase. The project statements are due at the beginning of the second quarter of their project, which begins in January, just around the corner after the holidays. The project statement is essentially saying, this is what we have found based on the parameters the client has given us that they want us to look at. Here are some of our action items that we intend to initiate during the implementation phase. And then here are the deliverables that we expect to give the company, the client at the end of our project that will provide real value and plug into their desire to move to zero waste and become a leader in circular economics. This week, I plan to meet with the client team leaders to review the progress of the students, to possibly reset the parameters that they were given on each team to see how the work of each team is doing, what are some of the hits and misses, and maybe how we can start looking at how the teams will begin integrate it, especially through customer-facing solutions as we move forward, because we want to be able to give the client not only in the work of each team in those areas, but how it plugs into a more strategic vision for them. One of the nice things about the capstone is that it has expanded our corporate engagement as a school with the company. And so I actually had a meeting with the CEO, the dean and I went, and the dean talked about all the things that the school had to offer. We have a 4th annual CSO Summit and Symposium coming up on March 24th, where I hope the client actually comes and provides a keynote address to that. Some of the leaders within the company will sit and talk about their experience with it, maybe even have some of the students up there as a session within the day-long conference. We're looking to roll out a marketing and public relations dimension to this so that the company and the business school can gain some traction from a media point of view because of the innovative nature of it, and working in ways to use social media. The company has actually been conducting interviews with each student, has been videotaping the orientation sessions. There are workplace visits to the distribution centers the company has around South Florida. So they have their own, the company has its own kind of internal media network. So they've got all the cameras and the producers there that are building material in order to disseminate among their stakeholders this innovative project that they're involved with, which actually falls under their social activities. So if you look at things from ESG, Prism, the social aspect of this project is something that they can be proud of when it comes to not only employee well-being. If we see some carryover from this class in terms of an actual hiring, which is quite possible, which we'll talk about in a second. But as I mentioned before, excuse me, they are plugging into a real need in the United States to rejuvenate our domestic economy in terms of the types of jobs that are being offered to Americans. One thing I wanted to note is that the students did sign non-disclosure agreements. And this is important because of the nature of the work they're doing. The company felt it was important to have the students sign these because they were providing them with competitive advantage data and information, or maybe stuff that isn't necessarily the most appealing in terms of some of their black eyes, you might say. And so the students are feeling like they're really part of the company. They got their badges, they go up there, they check in, they meet they assemble in the meeting rooms. And so the non-disclosure agreement really shows that the company is taking this very seriously, and that the information they're providing is information that is essentially for the client's eyes only. But in this case, they're willing to share it with us. Human resources and career services are considered to be stakeholders in this project. So this is not just an academic exercise of any kind, and it's not just some kind of a typical experiential learning course. This is a pathway for our students in sustainability to obtain jobs or placement with the client, if that so happens to be the case and there's a fit at the end of the road. Human resources and our own career services are involved in overseeing it to the extent that there may be an opportunity for the students to, if not serve with the company that they're with now, potentially pivot to similar companies, whether it be specialty retail or even in other sectors. So plenty of notes are being taken. So lastly, just to wrap up, the next steps are the action plans that the students have submitted at the end of this semester, which I plan to review, which will be folded into their project statements that I that I also mentioned before. So this is my opportunity to kind of help them, give them some feedback, give them some guidance, because some of them have never kind of had a consultant engagement before. And then so they'll be ready to prepare that statement for us by the end of January, about the time their midterm assessments are due. And their quarterly grades are also coming due, I think this week. Dr. Kelly is expecting them from me, so I have to get on that. So with that, I turn it back over to Dr. Kelly. Thank you all.
Thanks, Daniel. It was amazing what you're doing with Office Depot and this experiential course. Okay, let me just talk for a minute about the students we've been able to recruit for this program. You know, one of the interesting things about setting up this program is, like any other program you might start at a university, requires multiple levels of approval, not just within the business school, but also, you know, across campus where all the electives are taken in engineering and marine science, and the faculty senate, and so on and so forth. And so we went about that process, which can take years, really, and everyone was super enthusiastic, and the program actually got approved in just a few months. And so we got approval at the end of January of this year, and decided, well, we'll just recruit for this fall. So we have the program up and running as started this fall. And so what kind of students have we been able to recruit for the program? You know, one of the things that the chief sustainability officers that we talked to, we kind of road tested this curriculum with many people from industry. And the one thing that they all said was they want students who are passionate about doing good, passionate about sustainability, who want a career with a purpose. And so that's one thing that we really screened for carefully. And really all our students that we've admitted have this passion. And it's actually provided a side benefit in that the students all get along really well with each other and have bonded literally from day one with their kind of shared passion for sustainable business. You know, another interesting thing that we found is that this program doesn't simply kind of cannibalize existing MBA or other business school programs. It attracts kind of a unique set of students who probably wouldn't be in a business school master's program like an MBA were it not for this program. So for example, we get a lot of science and environmental science majors who, you know a lot about the environment, but don't really know how to apply it to business. We get some business majors who are either interested, have heard about sustainability somehow and have gotten interested in it, or want more than just business and a career that makes money. They want a career with a purpose as well. And then we get some kind of economics or public policy majors who, would traditionally be looking at a route of government and trying to, or NGOs and trying to influence kind of government policy, but have really been frustrated with that role in the sense of, the difficulty of getting environmental regulations passed, at least in the United States these days. And so they're turning to companies as kind of the way forward. So yeah, so despite the extremely short recruiting cycle that we had of just a few months, we were able to recruit an inaugural class of 24 students. All these students have some experience in sustainable business, and it might be very small in terms of an internship they did, or they might have been working for a company that was just happened to be focused on sustainability, even though that's not something that they were doing, or they might have been, had some other job and somehow fell into the role of working on sustainability within the company. Really, the biggest challenge that we have recruiting students is that still many students do not know what sustainable business is. They search for related things on Google search terms, and it's not really until that they participate in a webinar like this one that they actually learn what sustainable business is and start to get very excited about it. We have a highly diverse set of students, much more diverse than you would get in a typical MBA program. 54% female, for example, for just 24 students, we have 9 different countries. So, really diverse set of students, not just in terms of demographics, but also in terms of background. It's the students that we've been able to recruit are actually quite strong. There's been a lot of students out there who are quite strong and just haven't really found a program that is right for them and could have gone elsewhere, but really found our program to be unique and innovative. And so we've been able to get a really strong cohort for our first class. Okay, so what are the career outcomes that we're looking to provide for the students? Kind of the traditional route would be to be hired as a sustainability manager with the eventual idea of working your way up to a chief sustainability officer who coordinates the sustainability activities across the firm. Now, that's still a valid career path for most of our students. However, what we're seeing is sustainability working its way into more traditional business fields. For example, in finance, investment professionals are looking for people who know how to add socially responsible investing to the traditional investment mix. Supply chain managers are looking for people who can make the supply chains more sustainable. And in accounting people are looking for new recruits who can help the firm with their social and environmental reporting, not just their financial reporting. And in addition to that, what we've also discovered is that there is a route through entrepreneurship that some of our students have an interest in. Sustainability is a great way to bring a new product to market, to have a new innovative product that focuses on the sustainable version of some other product that's already out there. And many of our students have this kind of entrepreneurial focus and are interested in those kind of careers as well. Okay, and then the last thing I want to talk about is the sustainability strategy for the entire Herbert Business School here at University of Miami. First, it's important just to kind of practice what we teach. We're teaching students how to change your organization to become more sustainable, so it's important that we do the same here in the business school. But also the strategy that we're kind of emulating here is the strategy that we teach to students as well, as far as how to differentiate your product using sustainability. So when you introduce yourself as a sustainable version of an existing product, it's important that the whole company practice sustainable business practices, not just have one product that is sustainable and then the rest of the company does kind of whatever. And that's a great differentiator because it allows new entrants to compete against the big guys who have thousands of products and find it more difficult to transform their whole company. And so it is with the business school. We're differentiating ourselves using sustainability, becoming the place to go for sustainable business education. And so it's important to students who apply here that we don't just have a standalone program and the rest of the school kind of does whatever, that the whole school is moving in a more sustainable direction. So some of the things that we've done on that vein is we've first gotten our building LEED certified. It's now LEED certified gold. It's an existing building that's been around since 1982, so it's actually taken quite a lot of work to bring it up to LEED's gold standard, and in fact won an award for our LEED certification, and is the only building of its kind in Florida that has this certification. Another thing we're doing is we're making bringing the sustainability education into the other programs, the MBA program, the MS in Finance program, and other master's programs that we have here. The quickest way we found to do that was just to make the sustainable business classes available to these other programs as electives. We're revamping our MBA program now to introduce sustainability into the core requirements. This takes a longer period of time, but we're at least up and running by having these courses available as electives. We've joined the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. This is the UN network focused on sustainable development, headed by Jeffrey Sachs. He presented here in March. And we've had a number of distinguished speakers, both from the academic side and from the business side. So academic speakers include George Serafin from Harvard, and from the business side, Muhtar Kent from Coca-Cola, who's shared some of Coca-Cola's experiences in terms of becoming more sustainable. One of our biggest initiatives, as Daniel mentioned earlier, because he is in fact heading it, one of his thousands of responsibilities that he has here at the program, is the Chief Sustainability Officer Summit, which is March 24th of this year. So it's our 4th annual summit, and we had, last year's was an amazing success. We had CSOs from MasterCard, Waste Management, Lockheed Martin, and what this summit really allows us is to combine theory and practice. So students and faculty kind of learn what is working in the field from actual chief sustainability officers. It's a rapidly evolving field in business, and things are changing every day, and it really helps to have the CSOs kind of come in and tell us, what's worked and what hasn't worked. The program has an advisory board with 13 companies. They've been a tremendous help to us in kind of going through our curriculum. It is many revisions based on their input, their comments, which has just been completely invaluable to getting this set up. They're assisting us with job placements, capstone courses, and so on. So we work very closely with these companies to try and make sure we're providing a product that they are interested in. And then we have a Graduate Sustainable Business Club. This is actually started by the MBA students. One of the interesting things about that I found by kind of making the business school more sustainable is that people come out from the staff and from the students who I've never talked to and said, "Oh, I've been waiting for this for years. How can I get behind it? How can I help?" It's really a community that is very interested in sharing and helping out, which is very gratifying to find. And one of those things that happened was just a bunch of students from the MBA program coming to me and saying they wanted to start a Graduate Sustainable Business Club, which has members now from all the different programs, not just sustainable business, but MBA, Masters in Finance, and so on. And they've had a number of great events. They had a presentation in March from Lisa John, who's Sustainability Director of the Americas for Ernst & Young. So she gave a great presentation, and we had a social hour afterwards last March. Following the CSO Summit in March, they had a social event to raise money for the Clio Institute, which is a nonprofit institute here in Miami that's focused on climate education. And then just recently, this November, they had a presentation from Lloyd Crescendo Advisors. They're on our board of advisors, and they do wealth management with ESG considerations and so on. So a number of just great presentations that they put on and helping to educate their fellow students as to kind of what's going on in the sustainability world. And this is actually, as I said, been the great benefit of this program is seeing people come up and say, "Hey, this is great. I want to get involved." Okay, so let me just conclude here. I just want to talk for a second about the long-run trends in sustainable business. I don't think it's a fad. I think it's something that is becoming central to business education. And, there's a lot of reasons for that. I think companies see the value to their own organizations of becoming more sustainable, and they're becoming increasingly aware of this value. It's been driven by the external stakeholders, such as the socially responsible investors. But, also I think, at least in the US, the government dysfunction has really made the traditional route of arguing in government for more regulation kind of shut down. So, these days, it's very difficult to get regulation passed through Congress. If it is passed, it's sued in the courts for years. And there's just a lot of uncertainty about, what the government wants companies to do. And so rather than wait for that process to play out, if it ever does, companies are kind of taking their own initiatives and saying, well, what can we do? And how can we get together as companies and set our own standards for how we're going to help the environmental and social good? And I think that has a lot of benefits that people are not always aware of. Firms, they know their own costs. They're not going to do something that bankrupts the company. Whereas, government regulation, even well-meaning government regulation, can sometimes accidentally impose tremendous costs on companies. And, it allows companies to really choose the projects that makes the most sense for them, that's consistent with their vision, that can help them financially, and so on. So, every company I've talked to has some amazing innovative thing they're doing with respect to sustainability. I talked to a company just recently that owns cell phone towers in Africa, and what they're doing is they're providing refrigeration services to hospitals for their refrigerated medicines. Because in Africa, electricity is intermittent at best. And so, this is a very innovative thing that they came up with that, you would just not see in terms of regulation. And it also, creates a long-term perspective for the students. This really came out in our sustainability summit last year. Companies talked about, anticipating global trends with respect to sustainability and how that's helped them as a business. And you're just going to see the companies with a long-term focus are, of course, going to be the companies that are around in the long term. So, it's something that's here to stay, and I think it's important that business schools, recognize that and start training students so that they can excel and be the next generation of leaders in such a world. Well, that's it for the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. We're happy to answer any questions you might have, and I'll turn it back to Nicole.
Yeah, thank you so much. Looks like we've got quite a few questions, and I think we have time to answer a few. Okay, so how does this course compare to an MBA? Are they comparable or complementary?
They are definitely complementary. I would not describe them as very comparable. In a one-year master's, you really have to focus on what they need to know with respect to sustainability. In our accounting class, for example, there's not a lot of time to teach them all the financial reporting in addition to the environmental and social reporting that they're learning. They get some financial reporting and understand the very basics, but really that's it. The rest of the time has to be focused in a one-year program on all the things they need to know with respect to sustainability. So in that sense, it is complementary. We have students who have masters in accounting or MBA students who are taking this on as a second degree.
Great. Do you have any online offerings or courses dealing with sustainable business?
Not at present. My own preference as a professor is I really enjoy face-to-face interactions with the students, and so I've designed the program with respect to my own preferences. Now, I get a lot of requests from students and executives and so on for online versions, so that's something we may develop in the
Can you talk a little bit about your approach to get companies to participate in the capstone?
You want to take that, Daniel?
Sure. That's a good question because each company, has their own internal culture. Each company is facing their own kind of market dynamics, as I mentioned with Office Depot, which is kind of in a turnaround situation, as opposed to other companies that maybe in a growth phase or even at startup. And then the size of the company, they range in terms of the biggest companies, publicly traded like Office Depot, to smaller mid-sized companies that are unique to South Florida. But when I approach them, and I've begun, of course, to cast a wider net because Dr. Kelly wants to have a menu of capstone courses to offer students going forward. We were fortunate that for the first year, we had a client that was willing to take all of them and was big enough to handle them. But in other companies, the sustainability department might even be smaller, like one person, or none at all. And that's where I step in and provide some consulting services, which I'm doing actually to one of our advisory board members to get their sustainability program off the ground so that they could do some actual reporting, produce disclosure for investors, and then potentially be in a position down the road to build a capstone project. So there is ways of intervening along the way to encourage companies in a way that's all integrated with what we're doing through the program here at the school. But I think for my main point, I would say that I focus on the sustainability professional or leader or team at a given company, and then decide where our students or a consulting project might help. So there is a need that has to be identified, and that comes out through conversations with the prospective client regarding their sustainability program, but also my own market research, as the case with Office Depot, where I knew they were locally based, so we could be physically connected, which is important, I think, to have the students be able to leave campus and go and work in a corporate setting. But this company was facing some headwinds. So, some extra assistance, some additional staff, some out-of-the-box thinking was welcome. So it really is a mixed bag out there. So I think it just depends on, the variety that exists in the area that you live, where the school is that where the school is based, because you do have to be able to place the students in that working environment and actually engage in face-to-face meetings, I believe, to make it effective and also build that placement component potentially, where it's not just a experiential learning experience, but it's a potential job, it's a potential role, because we intend to carve out at least one role with Office Depot at the end of this 9 months. So there isn't, to answer your question, there isn't one approach that fits all. You really have to survey the landscape, decide what the market dynamics are, determine the needs, identify sustainability within the potential target company, and then of course at the end of the day, know who your students are, because you have to get a sense, that was difficult the first year, get a sense of what you're able to offer the company and the level at which the students are able to operate, because they do come in at various points in their early careers.
Very good. So we've run out of time, but I wanted to let you know that all of the questions that we're not able to answer today will be sent to both professors, and we'll produce a Q&A report following the webinar. You'll receive the webinar recording as well as the PowerPoint and the Q&A report. So thank you so much to Dr. Kelly and Professor Hicks for your presentation today. And we hope that you tune in to more GBSN cross-border coffee break webinars.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.